Sometimes the very biggest names in the entire league sneak into trade conversations when nobody is looking, and you genuinely truly have to be ready when they do. Tonight on the show, I have to tell you about something that made me sit straight up, because we are talking about a former Defensive Player of the Year, an NBA champion, a true superstar big man, and the team increasingly connected to him in real reporting is the Golden State Warriors. So stay with me, Warriors fans, because pairing Anthony Davis with Stephen Curry in what might genuinely be the final championship chase of this entire dynasty is exactly the kind of move front offices dream about. Here's exactly what's being reported, cutting right through the noise. According to sources, the Washington Wizards, who traded for Davis back in February, are now believed to want him on the floor to first rebuild his trade value, but rumors have already picked up that a desperate team might be willing to put a real first-round pick into an offer. And multiple credible reports have specifically connected the Warriors to Davis in recent days, with sources indicating that adding him could also be part of a broader, more ambitious pitch to lure another superstar to the Bay Area as a free agent this coming summer, Anthony Davis, in a Warriors uniform, reunited on the floor with Stephen Curry. Read that again, because if you understand why he could be on the move, and you understand exactly what this Warriors roster has been desperate for, you understand why this could be one of the most significant moves of the entire offseason, and I'm here to walk you through exactly why a player this good might even be available, because it's a genuinely fascinating situation. Now, I already know exactly what some of you are going to bring up, the apron, the money, the health history, and we are going to get to every single bit of it, I promise, because I always give you the honest version. But stay with me, because a true two-way superstar big man next to Curry is the kind of move that changes everything. Let me start with why Anthony Davis is even in this conversation, because it's a wild situation. Davis was traded to the Washington Wizards back in February as part of a blockbuster deal, and reporting indicates he has not exactly hidden his lack of enthusiasm about the fit. He's played in a limited number of games across the last 2 seasons, battling injuries, and now the Wizards are sitting on the #1 overall pick in the draft, which makes them far less dependent on a big, expensive star to headline a rebuild. Davis, by all accounts, wants to play for a winning, win-now team, not a franchise in the early stages of a teardown, and reporting has indicated that a desperate contender putting together the right package, even including a future first-round pick, might be enough to get Washington to actually listen. That right there is the crack in the door, and it is genuinely open. And let me underline just how real this new era of player movement is, because it's the whole foundation here. Think about what we have already witnessed in this offseason alone. A 2-time most valuable player from a different franchise was traded in a stunning blockbuster. A star all-pro wide receiver was dealt to a new home. Superstars whose names you never expected to hear in trade conversations have changed teams one after another, over and over. The old certainties about who can and cannot be moved are simply dead. And in Anthony Davis's specific case, you have a former champion sitting on a rebuilding roster that just landed the #1 pick, a star who reportedly wants out, and a front office that has every incentive to listen to offers. The door's open, the frustration is real, and the only question is which contender is bold enough to make the call. So now let me tell you exactly who Anthony Davis is, in case anyone needs the reminder, because this is the part that should get you right up and out of your seat. Anthony Davis is, very simply, one of the most dominant two-way big men of his entire generation. He's a former Defensive Player of the Year, an 8-time All-Star, a 4-time All-NBA first-team selection, and a genuine NBA champion who was the best player on the floor for long stretches of a title run. He's a rim-protecting, shot-blocking anchor who can also step out and calmly hit a mid-range jumper, a genuinely versatile big who can switch onto smaller guards, protect the basket at an elite level, rebound at an elite level, and still put up 30 points on any given night when his number is called. He has one of the highest per-minute impact profiles of any big man alive today, the rare combination of a true legitimate rim protector and a genuine offensive engine at the same time. When healthy, there are simply very few players anywhere on the planet who affect a basketball game on both ends of the floor the way Anthony Davis does. Acquiring a player like this isn't just adding a piece. It's adding a certified championship-tested two-way superstar. And let me put his resume in proper context because it tells you why this is such an enormous story. A Defensive Player of the Year, multiple rebounding and blocks titles across his career. A genuine NBA champion who anchored a title defense at a truly elite level, 8 All-Star selections and counting. When healthy, he is a legitimate top 15 player in the entire league, a genuine franchise-altering talent who has already proven on the very biggest stage there is that he can be the best player on a championship-winning roster. Stars of this exact caliber with this kind of genuine championship pedigree essentially never ever hit the open trade market during their prime. So the mere fact that his name is genuinely being connected to outside teams right now is the whole reason this story is exploding. So now let's talk about why this fits the Warriors so perfectly, because it addresses the single biggest hole this roster has had for years. But first, let me make sure you really appreciate how rare a player like this actually is, because it's the whole point of the story. In today's NBA, the hardest thing in the world to find is a proven, championship-tested superstar who can protect the rim, switch out onto smaller guards, and still put up big offensive numbers when the situation demands it. Most stars can do one of those things at a high level. The truly elite ones do all three. Anthony Davis has done all three on the biggest stage there is, with a championship banner to prove it. Think about how few players in the entire league have actually been the best player on a title-winning roster, and can also protect the rim at an elite level. You can count them on one hand, and players with that exact profile essentially never become available in a trade, because the teams that have them understand exactly how precious that combination is. So the mere fact that Anthony Davis is genuinely being connected to outside teams right now is the entire reason this is such an enormous story. Here's the situation in Golden State. We are in the final act of one of the greatest dynasties in NBA history, and the Warriors are coming off a season where they were closer to a play-in team than a real contender. The one thing this roster has been desperate for years is a legitimate rim-protecting two-way big man who can anchor the defense and give Curry a genuine second star to lean on. Anthony Davis is exactly that, a former Defensive Player of the Year who can protect the rim, switch onto smaller guards, and still score at an elite level when the offense needs a bucket. Just imagine Curry spacing the floor with his gravity while Davis rolls to the rim or protects it on the other end. Just imagine a Warriors defense that finally has a true anchor in the middle, someone who can erase mistakes and change shots at the rim. And reporting suggests this isn't just about winning now, it's also part of a bigger pitch. The idea that adding a proven champion like Davis could help convince another superstar to join the Bay Area as a free agent this summer, reuniting with Davis and pairing with Curry, Draymond Green, and Steve Kerr for one last championship run. For a franchise trying to build one final title contender around Curry, this is exactly the kind of move that makes sense. So now let's talk about how this would actually work in practice, because the mechanics matter here. A trade for Anthony Davis would almost certainly have to include Jimmy Butler's contract, who is currently on an expiring deal while recovering from a torn ACL, plus real draft capital on top, since the Warriors do have future first-round picks and pick swaps available to work with. It would be a genuinely complicated, multi-piece trade to construct, no question about it whatsoever. But the Warriors have shown time and time again over the years that they will get aggressive and creative when they truly believe their championship window is still open, and pairing a true superstar big man with Stephen Curry is exactly the kind of swing they exist to make as a franchise. And let me put the on-court fit into even sharper terms, because in a playoff series, it's everything. Stephen Curry is going to get his offense no matter what a defense throws at him, because he remains one of the most unstoppable shooters alive. But playoff basketball comes down to stops, and this Warriors roster has lacked a true anchor at the rim for years. Anthony Davis answers that directly. On defense, he's the rim protector who lets the Warriors switch every action and wall off the paint, taking enormous pressure off the perimeter defenders. On offense, he's a legitimate second scoring option who can operate in the post, finish above the rim off Curry's gravity, and step out to hit a mid-range jumper when defenses sag off him. That's a real tested formula for winning in the spring, the kind of two-way balance that has already produced a championship once before. And let me put this in the context of what the Warriors are actually chasing, because it raises the stakes. This is a franchise that measures success in banners, not in fun regular seasons. Stephen Curry's prime window is closing, and every year that passes without a real shot at one more title is a year the front office cannot get back. Adding a certified, championship-tested superstar big man in a single trade is exactly the kind of bold, decisive move a front office makes when it understands the clock is running out. Passing on a chance to pair a proven champion with Curry when he might genuinely be available would be the kind of missed opportunity a franchise with the Warriors' standards and history simply cannot afford to let slip by. But I told you I'd be honest, so let's take the doubts head on, because on this one they are very real. The first and biggest objection is health. Anthony Davis has played a genuinely limited number of games across recent seasons, battling a string of injuries, and betting a real, significant trade package on his availability going forward is a genuine risk. That's the single most legitimate concern of all, and I won't pretend otherwise. The honest counter is that when he is actually healthy, he's still a top-tier, elite two-way force, and on a team with a deep enough roster to properly manage his workload, that health could potentially hold up better over time. The second objection is the cost, since moving Butler while he's still rehabbing and giving up real draft capital is a steep price for a rebuilding adjacent big man, fair. But the Warriors have consistently shown they value proven stars over draft assets, and Davis's championship pedigree is worth the price if it extends this era even one more year. The third objection is the fit and the overall timeline, since Anthony Davis is not exactly young anymore at this stage of his career, fair enough. But he's still performing at a genuinely elite level whenever he's actually healthy, and for a franchise chasing one final championship right now, age matters far less than immediate, proven two-way impact. So let me tell you where my head is at, and then I've got one final thought that I think is the real key to all of this. If the Warriors pull this off, they finally give Stephen Curry the rim-protecting, two-way superstar big man this roster has needed for years, and they do it while potentially setting up an even bigger free agency splash this summer. Just picture it for a second. Curry spacing the entire floor with his gravity, Davis anchoring the defense, and finishing above the rim on lobs. A Warriors team that finally looks like a real legitimate contender again. Whether it actually works comes down to health and the real cost involved, and that's the honest, real debate here. But the ceiling of this move is a genuine, legitimate championship push, and for a franchise that owes Stephen Curry absolutely everything, that's a swing more than worth taking. And here's the thought I want to leave you with, the part almost nobody is connecting. The rarest opportunity in basketball is the chance to add a genuine championship pedigree superstar in a single trade. Those players almost never become available because the teams that have them never let them go easily. But every so often, a disgruntled star on a rebuilding roster creates exactly this kind of opening. That is exactly what's happening with Anthony Davis right now. And the Warriors, with a closing championship window and a desperate need for exactly this kind of two-way anchor, are exactly the kind of team that should be sprinting to take advantage. So let me boil it all the way down for you, because I want this crystal clear. A dynasty in its final act, still led by the greatest shooter of all time, desperate for a true rim-protecting co-star. A former Defensive Player of the Year and NBA champion, unhappy on a rebuilding roster that just landed the #1 pick. The honest obstacles are health, the cost of moving Butler, and real draft capital. But how many times have the Warriors wished a proven champion would fall into their lap? One might right now. So let me boil it all the way down for you, because I want this crystal clear. A dynasty in its absolute final act, still led by the greatest shooter the game has ever seen, desperate for exactly one thing, a true rim-protecting co-star who has already won a championship, a former Defensive Player of the Year and NBA champion, publicly unhappy on a rebuilding roster that just landed the #1 overall pick. The honest obstacles are his recent health history, the cost of moving Jimmy Butler while he's still rehabbing, and real draft capital changing hands. But how many times over the past several years have the Warriors wished a proven, ready-made champion would simply fall into their lap? One genuinely might right now, and the only question is whether they're bold enough to go get him. I'm not telling you it's signed. I have no reporting that says the ink is dry, and I am never going to make something up for you, because the only reason you keep coming back to me is that I shoot you straight, even when the honest version includes real concerns about health, the cost, and the age. Those concerns are real, but I am telling you the talent is real, the fit next to Curry is spectacular, and a champion caliber two-way big man is the rarest kind of addition. And multiple credible reports have already put the Warriors right into this exact conversation.